Hey internets! So one of the major problems that exists on the web these days is this issue of terrible meme content produced by Reddit echo chambers. And in this video I shall be going over some examples of said bad content, as well as pontificating on why said echo chambers tend to produce it. To put it simply, it can be understood almost as a mathematical formula, if you will. Biased moderators plus bad website design plus extremely subjective rules equals brain-dead echo chamber. And this really needs to be called out because it's a problem that seems to be getting worse and worse as time goes on, to the point where we are in Clown World year 2023, and this is even bigger of an issue than it ever was. The first one that deserves a laugh is our political memes, and of course, the red flag can be found at the bottom. Don't post moronic BS, since this is subjective, the determination will be made by the mods. Let's take a quick guess at what kind of mods are moderating this board by looking at some of the memes they allow. Oh, look at that, we have a girl known as Donald Trump bashing democracy. The bashing that democracy pinata. Yeah. In no way does this actually touch on the real problem with democracy we have these days, which is that people do not always make rational decisions and can be easily bamboozled into voting for irrational policies via media propaganda and their inherent reporting bias. Orange Man actually has very little to do with it, as the inherent flaws of democracy have existed long before Trump came into office. If you actually wanted to talk about dangers to democracy, the more honest take would be to talk about the state using big tech as a way to circumvent the First Amendment by proxy, effectively turning them into organizations that are private in name only, enabling censorship of ideas that the state does not like, which is obviously more of a mixture of a dictatorship and an oligarchy rather than anything remotely resembling democracy. But hey, Orange Man bad, therefore Orange Man at fault for problems of democracy. There's no real joke here other than Trump derangement syndrome, but that's just something posted by a random user. In order to understand where the mods in this board stand, we need to look at one of their stickies. Oh boy. I'm not sure, but I think they might be very, very biased against the right here. No, that's just silly, crazy talk. And in this particular meme, I'm not even sure if it's exactly what Republicans believe. I'm more of a libertarian right than a general conservative, but last I checked, they're blaming the feds for helping storm January 6th, not necessarily Antifa, and that the message was more along the lines that the January 6th Commission was mimicking too much of the Soviet-era show trials, rather than it just being, oh, you can't investigate it. It's not the fact that it's being investigated that makes them upset, I believe, but rather it's being investigated in an obviously biased way that they take error with. So this meme is obviously extremely disingenuous. But hey, 1.5k up dudes! But wait, the partisanship here gets even worse. Those of you who follow me on Twitter may know that I have already called out this particular board before. Again, we see partisan double standards. Orange Man did a bad thing. Therefore, Biden should be allowed to also do bad thing. Also, this guy is a newtsie because we couldn't come up with a better punchline. Over 400 updoots! Or how about this one, which is honestly even more ridiculous. Wah wah wee wah, they banned something that I like, therefore they should also ban something that I don't like. They banned my poetry, therefore only the state should be allowed to own assault rifles. Aside from just the obvious false comparison fallacy here, the very premise behind it is just really childish. There's no principle here of whether or not it's right for the state to be banning things. Instead, it's just them whining about not getting their way all the time. 1.7k updoots! I think it's pretty easy to understand where these guys' priorities lie, so let's move on to a different board. Ah yes, the dank left. No reactionaries, which basically just means everyone they don't like. Now with the previous board we were dealing with an echo chamber in denial, whereas these guys are more of an open echo chamber. So, points for honesty, I guess. Now the problem you're going to run into with these even deeper echo chambers is that they generally have very bad faith interpretations of any external ideology. For example, this one. Imagine being a libertarian, but being a minimum wage worker. I clean those toilets, and I deserve to do so for the rest of my life. Does any Austro-libertarian actually believe this? No. So this is very poor understanding of what those outside of their belief bubble actually believe. For instance, thinking that libertarians against minimum wage increases must be perfectly happy with the impoverished state that many people who are currently working for minimum wage earn. Of course, the actual libertarian right position is that we need to reduce barriers to entry for new businesses, and that this has been proven to greatly improve a society's quality of life. And that minimum wage laws, in fact, accomplish the exact opposite of their stated goal. They result in more inflation, less wealth, and greater monopolistic control over the economy, as larger corporations are able to more easily eat the cost of increases to minimum wage and therefore benefit via reduced competition. The basic gist of it is that while minimum wage increases may benefit some workers in the short run, it overall damages people in the long run. In other words, it's kind of a time preference issue, which, going back to this meme, kind of makes it seem even sillier. Because again, it says for the rest of my life. If you're really concerned about someone's economic prospects throughout their life, shouldn't you be concerned about time preferences here? Oh wait, of course, this is the Tenki board, so yeah, they don't understand economics. How about another meme then? Okay, well now this one actually at least has some truth to it. Basically, Elon Musk, spaceship man bad, and every other supposedly self-made rich person, and then there's this guy wherein he started his business and had two things, a dream and 6 million pounds. It's definitely true that a lot of self-made bootstrappers did indeed have an initial buff from their parents or wherever. The honest question would be though, why is it like this? Why does it cost so much to get into business? A big part of the answer to this can actually be found in corporate lobbying. A lot of people, particularly those who lean towards the economic left, have this very big misconception that lobbying is done by these massive corporations in order to reduce the size of the state, or reduce regulation and reduce spending. Of course, the truth is exactly the opposite. They lobby for more regulation, bigger government, and increased spending. Of course, this is done selfishly on their behalf. For instance, they may lobby for regulation in ways that reduces competition by regulating it away, or increase state spending and government size in sectors of the economy that they can take advantage of. For example, lobbying for increased subsidies and then ensuring that the subsidies are coded as such so that their business is guaranteed to be able to take advantage of them. Or lobbying for policies that keep the cost of land ownership high, both to increase the value of their own properties and as a power grab to create an economic barrier against any potential competitors. All of this results in an economy where it seems that almost no matter what type of business you are looking to start, there are mandatory permits, zoning restrictions, and other various legal barriers that you must jump over, with these hurdles costing tens to hundreds to possibly millions of dollars depending on what you are trying to do. So yes, actually, when the game has been rigged so that you must fork over a small fortune to the state before you can even start your business, obviously a disproportionately high number of successful entrepreneurs will be those who start out with a small fortune to begin with. But this is more of a problem with regulatory capture and government corruption, rather than the punchline of this meme, which just really seems to be rich people bad, spaceship man bad. 23.9k updoots. Now what I've been babbling on about so far is really just memes, so what about something a little bit more serious? How about what happens when we have a political discussion board with extremely biased moderation? Well, a look at our politics answers this question quite definitively. At any point in time, you can go there and see pretty much nothing but DNC propaganda and Orange Man bad. I mean, yeah, I didn't even intend this to be a video about Donald Trump, but these people just seethe over him so much that it just kinda ended up that way, didn't it? Anyway, what we see here is pretty much just a massive circle jerk over whatever the latest NBC or Vice or ABC propaganda happens to be for the day. And if you try to post anything that isn't lib propaganda, well, you either get downvoted into oblivion or the mods will just ban you. But what's really going on here is really just the problem that Reddit's site design honestly kinda sucks. You can even ignore the fact that any kind of right-leaning board often either gets quarantined or shadow banned or just outright banned entirely off the site, mainly due to biased admins who are also partisan hacks in their own way. The issue is really how Reddit works in general. Organizing posts and responses and whatnot just entirely on updoots really just makes it so whatever topics are preaching to the choir end up receiving the most attention. In other words, you are incentivized on Reddit in order to just say whatever will gain you the most prestige within whatever pseudo-cathedral or micro-cathedral of the echo chamber board that you are on, as opposed to the more traditional forum structure, which is organized based on time, with threads being bumped to the top of the list based on which have received new posts lately. This is far more conducive to honest discourse, and it's honestly kinda sad that a lot of people do not realize this. This is probably why even 4chan, often considered the armpit of the internet, is honestly a better website for discussion than Reddit. Instead of updoots and karma and whatnot, instead you just have anonymous people posting things which then get bumped to the top of the list simply by posting something new. And most importantly, posting a dissenting opinion will often get your thread more interaction rather than less. It's obviously not perfect because, again, 4chan is the armpit of the internet, but it is better than Reddit. Because the harsh reality is that the design of Reddit's website basically rewards you from being a midwit who simply regurgitates whatever the narrative is of whatever subreddit echo chamber you happen to choose. This doesn't mean I completely hate Reddit. There are a few based boards like Kotaku in Action or Golden Black, and Walk Away isn't bad either, but the good boards are few and far between, especially since good boards, you know, have a tendency to just get banned. And yes, unfortunately, the right is not immune to this either. Sites that mimic Reddit, such as the .win network, also fall victim to this echo chamber effect, where stating whatever most people consider to be approved content will grant you much greater recognition and engagement than someone trying to start a more controversial thread. The Win network is slightly better than Reddit since it doesn't have biased administrators behind the backs, forcing their San Francisco-style anti-free speech progressive politics down everyone's throats, where any subreddit does not bend the knee to the religion of wokeness is in danger of being kicked off the site entirely. But in good faith, I do have to admit that us rightoids are not immune to this problem. Really, to be honest, no one is immune to this problem. Personally, I would like to see a return of the popularity of the more decentralized, classic-style Envision forum boards that were more common in the early 2000s. I remember internet discussions back then had a lot less bad faith, and again, posting a dissenting or controversial opinion would actually get genuine interaction, as opposed to, you know, being buried under a billion updates. The closest we seem to have right now is post-Musk Twitter, which, despite also being centered around likes for engagement views, is made significantly less awful by virtue of the fact that you don't have as much moderation or subboards to enforce their biased ideology, much to the dismay of certain fake libertarians like Voosh. To conclude this, a lot of what's going on the internets these days can actually be seen in this old meme from Kojima. You're being silly. What we propose to do is not control content, but to create context. The untested truths spun by different interests continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems. Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large. The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right. That's pretty much what happens on Plebbit. A person can pick their poison of whichever heavily censored little echo chamber sub they want to be a part of, and because of Reddit's site design and biased moderation system, and how it doesn't really value freedom or encourage good faith discussion, their beliefs within that echo chamber will indeed never be invalidated, but they will also most likely never know the truth of what's really going on in this world. Anyways, thanks for watching. That's all I have to say for today. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, leave me a tip, subscribe, and all that. Till next time.